So this here is a Fliqochet board, and for the purposes of the demo I'll actually be sitting in the middle just to show you around, and then I can create a scenario to better explain the game. But for the purposes of a real game, players will be sitting on opposite ends of each other, and they will be alternating, taking turns trying to get their pucks down the board into one of these three zones or the drop in the middle. These three zones will be your safe zones and can get you points at the end of a round. Or if you successfully get your puck into the drop, you would immediately remove it and score 20 points. You would peg the 20 points along your score track. So each player has a score track on their board, and it's in increments of 10. And then you have a 5-point here, because at the end of any round, your points will always either end in 0 or 5. So you have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 plus the 5 there. Once the threshold, at the end of any round, once the threshold of 100 is achieved, then that would constitute for the game. Now, a full Fliqochet match is played over the course of rounds, games, and then of course the match. So first of all, a round would consist of each player alternating shots with 9 pucks. And again, if at the end of any round the 100 point threshold is crossed, then the player with the more points is going to win that game. In order to win a full match, you have to win 4 games. But of course, that's a full Fliqochet match. If you wanted, I mean, you could play just one singular game. You could play best of 2, best 2 out of 3, best 3 out of 5. But a real full Fliqochet match is best 4 out of 7. So, what are the zones? Well, first, this is your shooting zone. And you can move your puck anywhere behind this line. It must be behind the line. Anywhere in this zone in an attempt to shoot forward to either get points into your safe zone, drop it into the drop, or even to knock an opponent's puck out of this zone, which is a 0 zone. So, let's talk about the zones. This zone here is worth 5, 10, and 15. The drop, of course, is worth 20. I explained that you would remove the puck immediately and peg your points. You can't take those away. But until the end of the round, getting any pucks in these 3 zones is considered safe in the fact that your opponent won't be able to hit you. However, if by the end of the round they somehow get knocked out in any other fashion, you might not be able to get those points. So, if you get it in here, it's 5, 10, 15. Any puck that is resting on the edge is worth double the points the zone, double the points that it rests in, the zone it rests in. So this here, this 5 becomes a 10, 10 becomes a 20, and the 15, you can get it either on the side or rest it anywhere along the long edge of the board, and that 15 becomes a 30. So, 5, 10, 15, this is worth 20. The zone surrounding the 20 drop is actually worth 0. But there is ways to get points in the 0 zone. And that would be if one of your opponent's pucks, say he shot for the drop, he misses anywhere in here, you now, in an attempt, can knock his puck off. If you do, you automatically peg 5 points. If you were to knock off multiples, 5, 10. Pretty straightforward. Now, what happens when you shoot up and your pucks come to rest in the safe zone? But real quickly before that, I just want to show too, there's a couple of bumpers here that cut down angles. and present itself as an obstacle. Now, the light players now successfully put all these pucks into his safe zone. The round is not over, so they're not counted yet. Scoring would be counted at the end of the round. So now what this does, because these 3 zones are his safe zone, it narrows down where his opponent can shoot, because in Fliqochet, the opponent cannot disturb any of his opponent's pucks inside the safe zone. So getting a lot of pucks down to this end actually presents a great problem for your opponent because it narrows down his own shooting lane. So now if you look, he can shoot here. A lot of this area has been cut off. He could maybe shoot from here. You could shoot down here. But here's the problem. If you try to monkey around a little bit and you're shooting here, or you want to shoot up between here, or even try to get it into the drop, see the angle's a little bit tighter here, and you at any time touch an opponent's puck, disrupt an opponent's puck inside of his own safe zone, you would remove the puck and automatically the light player would peg his points. So that is a way that he can peg his points prior to the end of the round. Now, even if your finger, if you went to flick the puck downward and you, even with your finger, came in contact, he again would take it and peg it immediately. So that's why in this game it's very important to try to set up a lot of things into your safe zone. You also find when playing this game, for some reason, players seem to, through playtesting and everything, players seem to just cannot get away from this, the drop. It calls to them for some bizarre reason. It's like it's open and you always want to try for the drop. But strategically speaking, I myself think it's very beneficial to get some things down there. Now, say in an attempt, even though you haven't pegged your points yet, and this is your safe zone, you yourself could, say that's in the 0 zone, you know it's in the dead zone here, you're not going to get any points at the end of the game. You in an attempt might want to try, because you can hit your own pucks, to then hit this puck forward. You can advance your own pucks forward like that. Even if the puck is in your own safe zone, you can still try to advance your puck into a further zone. Say for example here, if you were successful to hit your puck, it may come to there, come to rest there, and now you've got it further down into the 15 and plus your 5 here. Again, you would not get to peg any points until the end of the round. So the flick is the basic action you're using to flick the puck. The actual Fliqochet is when your puck comes into contact with your own puck in an attempt to advance it forward, or if your opponent, or if you hit your opponent's puck out and peg points, that is also called a Fliqochet. So the Fliqochet is basically any time pucks come together and meet. An attempt again either to move your own puck forward or to remove another player's puck off. So that's kind of the basics of the game. Again, for the purposes of the video, I'm sitting in the middle, but in a real game, players would be sitting on opposite ends. So to quickly go over it one more time, right here is your own shooting zone. Your puck must be behind the line. you'll alternate with your opponent trying to move pucks into here, 5, 10, 15. And the other thing too is if any puck is resting on a line, you would move it downward for the purposes of scoring. So that 10 would not be a 10 unless it's fully in there. If it's on the line, it would drop down into the 5 zone, and that 5 would drop down into the 0 zone, which actually, right there, that puck is not in the safe zone because it is on the line, it is actually there. So, an opponent could attempt to Fliqochet it off. The other choice you have is to try to get it into the drop. The drop is worth 20 points. You remove immediately, peg your points immediately. If you miss, that is the 0 zone. And it leaves your pucks wide open for someone else to try to hit them off to peg his own points. Now, when you hit the Fliqochet off again, you peg that 5 points immediately. So, a round consists of each player alternating 9 pucks back and forth. If at the end of the round no player has crossed the 100 threshold, you would again shoot a full round of 9 pucks. And once any player has crossed the 100 point threshold at the end of any given round, that would then call the game, and the person with the most points wins. Now, what happens if both players have crossed the 100 point threshold and the score is tied? Well, you would go into almost like an overtime, and that overtime would be called the dropout. And in the dropout, the only object is to hit the drop. You'd start, each player would shoot in almost a sudden death type fashion. Each player gets to shoot 3 pucks. So if he shoots the 3 puck in there, boom, he scores it. It's basically a 1. He's up 1. So this player here would have to shoot, and at the end of 3, shooting 3 pucks, whoever's shot the most would then win the game. Now, if at the end of the 3, each player has shot 3, and still it is tied, the next 3 would then be moved up and shot from the 10 zone. And again, if at the end of the 3, one player has more, they win. If it is still tied, you would go into the 5 zone, and you wouldn't shoot 3 at this point. If you actually got to this point in a match, in a game, what would happen is that you would just keep alternating pucks until someone misses. So from the 5, if he makes it and he doesn't make it, boom, you have it. The lighter player wins. So you would just go back and forth in a sudden death at this point when you reach to here. Now, if I shoot and I miss, say it just skips over and lands here during the dropout phase, the puck would not stay there. Puck is removed immediately. Each player will always have a clear path to the drop. And of course, the winner of the drop, or the dropout, I should say, would peg their game. And then again, if you want to play a real Fliqochet match, is played best 4 out of 7. Although you could play 3 out of 5, 2 out of 3, even a single match. It's entirely up to you, and of course, if you have the time and if you don't. So, that is pretty much the basics of Fliqochet. And stay tuned, because I'm going to have a full match gameplay video. This here was basically to show you how the game works, what the different zones are, and the real basics of the game. Maybe showed you a little bit about strategy, but I think you'll be better off watching this first and then watch the upcoming gameplay. And I'll cut the gameplay up so that each match, you can watch the match each game at a time. And that you can see it in action, and I think that's where where you'll see the game really shine.